In the book titled Screen Jesus, Christ's Portrayal in Film and Media by Peter Malone in Chapter 3 states, ever since the start of cinema in 1895, film was becoming a new innovation, and the first thing that these filmmakers wanted to focus on was visually telling stories from the Bible, especially the New Testament. This new art form we now know as film was a brand new invention of the time. Motion pictures, aka moving images, were the big things, and filmmakers were being very creative and thinking of new stories and ideas. Being that as film was developing, a majority of these filmmakers were Christian and wanted to visually show Christ. The first depiction of Christ on film was made by one of the cinema pioneers, George Méliès, and made a short film titled Le Christ marquant sur les flots, aka Christ walking on water. It depicts the story of Mark chapter 6 verses 45 through 52. Sadly, there's no images or footage of the film. It's considered to this day lost, so it is unknown what Christ looked like in that film. The next film that was directed by Ferdinand Zecca, released in 1903, was titled Passion and Death of Christ. This was the second film to portray Christ in the moving image. As I view this film on YouTube, you notice that Christ doesn't look like what we picture. The actor playing Jesus Christ has really long hair and a really long beard in this feature length. The image of Christ seems almost as he has no face, and we get confused on how Jesus is supposed to be portrayed, other than a hairy to no human face. And if you look at the clothes, it kind of resembles the Sacred Heart or the Divine Mercy Jesus as depicted in many art. So maybe they got their reference from these paintings of the clothing. So it's quite interesting. The third film was directed by Sidney Olcott and released in 1912, was titled From Manger to Cross. It stars Robert Henderson Bland as Jesus Christ. In the filmmaking book titled Miracle of the Movies states this about the film. Jesus is more portrayed as somewhat overacted. Camera work is stilted, the camera being merely a recording instrument and not part of the pattern of the exposition of the story itself. Robert Henderson Bland's performance is so sedately remote as there is not so much acting performances at all, but a series of dignified poses, and this is from pages 163 to 64. Now, Bland's performance as Christ doesn't give Jesus no character whatsoever. His character and other characters look to be divine or threatening, unlike how Jesus may have been during his time on earth. He wasn't threatening, he was divine, but the other characters were act as though they were as like Christ, even though they weren't. Also, when you watch the film, the characters are so distant in the film and out of focus, it's hard to even see their performances. Although this film is on YouTube, it is preserved in the National Film Preservation Foundation because, according to Turner Classic Movie host Robert Osborne and the U.S. Library of Congress, they deemed it as culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. And they have this film in the Library of Congress, and it's also in the public domain for anyone to view. The third film to be released that shows Jesus Christ on film, called Intolerance, that was released in 1916. Now, this is not a Christ film. It is more a film about how a family is trying to love each other, and they take references from early days, like biblical times, how people struggle with love throughout the ages. There are 3 scenes that depict Christ. 1, the wedding feast at Cana. 2, Mary Magdalene. And 3, his crucifixion. Now, in these different short clips of the film, Jesus, again, as you can see, the film is much more clear. You could see that Jesus looks like the Sacred Heart and is true to just not only that, but the facial features as well to show what Jesus looked like. And it's a very somewhat good depiction of Christ, and maybe this is how some of us even depict Christ, through that image of that actor. So it is a good film to watch. If you watch it and you see this clip, it shows exactly the actor probably is not overreacting nor being animated about it, but he's showing how Jesus Christ could have acted, how he could have been, and what his human characteristics may have been. So it is a good film to watch. The last film, I know I'm skipping ahead, is A Day of Triumph. It was released in 1954. There is not known much about this film, nor am I able to find it, but it is almost sort of a high musical of Christ being portrayed in film, and from late 20s to the 1970s, there was really no Christ films to be released in Hollywood or even the theaters. Most of the films were some biblical movies, but not a whole lot of Christ films. The next segment will be on 1970s through 1980s Christ films. So please subscribe to my channel. Let me know what you think and comment below and give me a like. Thank you for watching this video.